Oh, Greg is asking me, Fran, did you do your original theme direct to tape on 4-track? Yes, I did. I was done on my Porta Studio 4-track. Often what I would do, going back to the 80s, because I've had that Porta Studio since 1980, 89 I think I bought it. But one of the first things that I learned how to do with that extended, one is overdubbing. It has a feature in the Porta Studio where you can overdub, you can record a track, you can play back that track and record it onto a second track along with a live. So you can overdub two tracks, like a pre-recorded track and a live track, and make a third track that is actually two combined. And if you keep that, you can use the overdubbing method to do literally as many tracks as you want, but then you accumulate hiss and other byproducts and stuff. But I found the better way, other than overdubbing, the better way to do it would be to record 4 tracks, and then you take the 4 tracks and you dump it onto a hi-fi 2-track. And back in the old days, I had an SVHS editing studio that I had built up over the course of a few years. So by the early 90s, I had these Panasonic pro-level SVHS decks that had really great hi-fi sound. It was like, better than CD. It was like better than 15 IPS 2-track tape was the SVHS hi-fi track. And so I would take those 4 tracks, I would boil them down, pre-mix them as good as I wanted, basically do a final mix. I boil that down to a hi-fi 2-track. And then I would take that hi-fi 2-track and I would dump it on to the Tascam again as a 2-track without really any loss. And then I'd have 2 more fresh tracks. And so basically I would expand the 4-track to a 6-track. And then you could expand that to like 8 or 10 tracks if you added overdubbing with that. But the theme song that I did, I believe that is a 6-track. It was a 4-track instrumental because I had the drum machine, I had the keyboard, organ, I had the guitar part and the bass part. So that's 4. I boiled that down to a hi-fi 2-track, dumped it back on to the Tascam, and then I had 2 tracks I used for vocal. I had a lead vocal and a back vocal. And in that one, in the FranLab theme, there's only 1 guitar track. There's not 2, because I didn't do the typical thing where I had a rhythm guitar track and then I put the solo on. I just had 1 guitar track and I alternated between the rhythm backtrack and the solo on the same track. And all I did in the mix is I just brought back the guitar to the background during the rhythm parts and then pushed it up for the solo stuff. So it's just 1 guitar track, but it was a 6-track, but done on the 4-track with my double dump method. And that's how you did it in the tape days. Do I own a cassette player? Well, obviously the Tascam is a cassette player, and if you've watched my videos, you've also seen Cassette Time with Fran.
It's cassette time with Fran. It's cassette time with Fran. Cassette time with Fran.
Which, if you haven't, it's on the channel, Cassette Time with Fran. Bring back the cassette deck. Well, if you watch Techmoan, you'll know that they definitely have been bringing back the cassette deck. The problem is that no one on the planet makes a good cassette mechanism. That's the problem. That's what Techmoan is always bemoaning. There's one factory in the world that still makes a cassette mechanism. And that same really shitty cassette mechanism is put into every single cassette deck. So if someone does a Kickstarter of the ultimate big deck and it looks impressive and has all these meters and everything, you're going to buy that. But it's got that same crappy Chinese-made little cassette mechanism that the cheap little portable break-apart little things have. Until a company actually starts building real, actual precision cassette deck mechanisms from scratch, you're not going to have cassette decks again. Period. It's the reality of it. I've got a couple of really, 2, I'm down to 2. I used to have 3. But I've got a few really good vintage decks. But if you want a really good cassette deck, you're going to have to buy a vintage one, rebelt it, restore it, clean it up, recap it. If you want a decent cassette deck, you're gonna have to buy 80s era. Just the bottom line.
In the lab. That's where I work. In the lab. Go berserk. In my lab.